crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Oh no.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can, released March 5th, 1982. It was written by David Rabe, based on the book of the same name by Barbara Gordon, directed by Jack Hofsiss, and released by Paramount Pictures. Author Barbara Gordon's novel of the same name was published in 1979 and nominated for 1980's Best Autobiography by the American Book Award. Screenwriter David Rabe adapted the story to a script as a starring vehicle for his wife, Jill Clayburgh.
She got the part.
Yeah.
Stiff competition.
Director James Foley was briefly considered to helm the adaptation as his directorial debut, but instead spent the 80s touring with Madonna and directing her music videos and documentaries. The project landed with the similarly featureless director Jack Hofsiss for what would become his only title. We start in an editing bay with Jill Clayburgh as Barbara Gordon. They're watching B-roll in Tijuana, Mexico, following a documentary subject, Jean Scott Martin, played by Geraldine Page, as she enters a Mexican health clinic to get affordable health care south of the border. We cut from El Clinica to Jean and her husband Ben embracing lovingly on a Mexican beach, and then to Jean resting sickly in a hospital bed.
That's powerful. It's really powerful.
That is not a healthy-looking person.
They never, throughout the course of the rest of this film, ever really explain what's going on here with this documentary. Like, I mean, I understand person is sick and she made film about it.
And
like,
she's a poet.
They don't really explain I guess maybe it's irrelevant, but
Yeah.
I guess I was a little frustrated that I'm like, we never really get any more than that.
Pretty much, that's true. Barbara is worried that the contrast is actually too dark and makes an editorial decision to cut after the embrace on the beach instead of the hospital. Her editor struggles fruitlessly to talk her out of the change. Barbara thinks the message is more hopeful if it ends on a high note, but she's reminded by her assistant Fran that Jean will not survive her condition, cancer of the pancreas, and a hopeful ending would be inauthentic to the situation.
I have an instinct about Jean, and I want her to see herself looking beautiful. It's going to help her recover.
You want to give her an incentive to live? Well, I didn't know that. I thought we were making a movie here about what happened. But it's a cure movie.
They break for lunch, and Barbara's lunch is a sandwich, soda, and Valium. She's interrupted by a man named Alan, played by Richard Masur, who claims to have just vouched for her with the network set to broadcast her latest documentary. Morbidly, the deal he cut is an agreement that if Jean passes before the documentary's air date, that the network will air the film commercial-free. She barely reacts, but rises to answer a ringing phone in the next room. Alan asks how Jean is doing and is confused to hear she's doing better, but I don't know if this is just Barbara editorializing or if that's the actual situation. We cut to Barbara shooting another interview segment while pacing across the rooftop of Jean's hospital, but Barbara calls cut because the framing of the picture looks awkward. During a short break, Barbara finds Jean at the edge of the building and says she looks good, and Jean confesses that she was just contemplating jumping.
I was thinking of jumping off the building. I'm getting out right now.
You weren't. Were you? Really?
You said I looked good.
Fran delivers a message from Barbara's boyfriend, Derek, inviting her out for a drink this evening. Jean shares a story about a couple meeting at a dance.
Night, and they were dancing at this dance, and he said, I'm only here for the weekend. And she said, well, I'm dancing as fast as I can. Oh. Me too.
Implying that the woman has misinterpreted a romantic invitation as a criticism of her dancing speed.
I don't get it.
Jean sees herself as the woman in the joke, with a limited time supply to work with, but no way to get things done any faster. But the joke in the story she told is that he's telling her, we should go to your hotel room and we could have sex because I'm only here for the weekend. And she thinks he's like, I'm only here for the weekend. Can you dance a little bit faster? We might not be done dancing by the time the weekend's over.
Okay.
It's not funny.
No, it's not funny.
Okay.
It's definitely not funny.
Okay. All right. So I guess I did get it.
Yeah.
I just didn't laugh at it.
It's as funny as Only When I Laugh. Remember
Which
when
apparently is hilarious.
Remember when we discovered what that joke meant? When we were like, oh, that is the joke.
That is the
I
joke.
did understand it.
Yeah.
We cut back to the edit bay again, and Barbara immerses herself in a recording of another of Jean's poetic monologues. The take is interrupted by voices from behind the camera when Jean uses the word pissed, which they apparently can't say on television. Barbara tries to come up with a broadcast-safe ADR alternative that will still fit Jean's mouth shape, seeming to settle on depressed instead of pissed.
I'm depressed. I get pissed. I'm depressed. I get pissed.
I assumed this change would be the heart of a major disagreement later, but we never really come back to it. I also don't know why she's bothering with ADR for a take that was interrupted by people behind the camera.
Yeah.
You're going to cut away anyway.
And it also seems like they already have the ending of the film filmed. And
just shooting extra stuff for no reason. Barbara arrives late to her date with Derek and finds him at the bar, played by Nicol Williamson. Do you guys recall the last time we had an actor from Excalibur in a movie released on March 5th, 1982?
I'm going to guess Evil Under the Sun.
Yeah, and who was that?
Nicholas Clay.
That's right. And he played Lancelot in that film.
I just let you have that one, Richard. You know, totally knew it.
Hey, it's like my Excalibur is all my.
You gotta let
jam.
Richard win one of them every once in a while. He reads her a glowing review of her previous documentary from the newspaper and then spills a drink on himself. It's a weird moment, but I guess it's meant to imply that he's been drinking for a bit since before she got there.
He tries to play it off as they moved my drink. I looked away and they must have moved it.
Explaining away the spill, she tells the bartender that he was trying to kiss her hand, but he denies it, and she's offended by the denial, but we never actually saw him try to kiss her hand, so I don't even know which of these people I'm supposed to think is being weird. Derek eventually admits he was trying to kiss her hand, but that's an embarrassing way to knock a drink over. Turns out both of these people are pretty weird. Derek tries to claim that somebody moved his drink, which caused the spill, even though it makes little difference to a non-blind person if your drink is moved. She tells Derek about her struggles with the editor Sam, and they're led to a table. She says she and Sam can't agree on the ending, and then Derek basically paraphrases that Sam wants something different than Barbara does, and she reacts like he's brilliant for guessing that. She's like, wow, that's exactly what happened. How did you know? And it's like, you just told me. Then he proposes marriage, and she turns him down, fearing it would change things between them.
That's the point.
Yep, that's why I asked. Derek basically says that he can't endure the thought of her working in rooms with men all day, and that if they were married, he'd feel better about it, which is basically an unproposal, because what a shitty reason to ask someone to marry you.
Yeah.
Marry me because I think you'd cheat on a boyfriend, but not a husband.
Right.
Not because I like you or anything. Under the table, we see Barbara digging a couple Valium out of her pocket. We soon learn that Derek works as a public defender, or technically just a defense attorney for the underprivileged. He's not actually a public defender, and he lost a big case today. Probably why he started drinking so early. Walking with her friend Karen later, Barbara is reminded she should buy a fancy dress in case she wins the Emmy she is currently nominated for. Karen asks how a few of Barbara's exes are doing because she agrees with us that Derek is weird. Later, we hear Barbara on the phone with Jean's husband Ben asking to stop by to show Jean the current cut of the film. She thinks it would be helpful, but Ben tells her not to trouble herself by bringing the movie by. As they speak, Barbara is bagging up a pair of Valium pills to take later.
Well, she's getting a little wild.
Wild? I'll just come see her as a friend. What do you mean wild?
I'll talk to her.
He hangs up. She cuts the corner off a Ziploc bag and folds it around 2 pills before pinning them to her jacket sleeve. It seems like she's taking care to medicate in secret as often as possible. During the ceremony, Barbara wins her Emmy, and Jean looks proud watching from home.
When she's sitting down at the ceremony, her friend just goes, hey, do you want some Valium? It's like, why did she take all the time to hide them in her dress if you're just going to get them at the ceremony?
Yeah. During the ceremony, Barbara wins her Emmy, and Jean looks proud watching from home, or from her hospital bed. Barbara gives a slow, aimless speech, and I can't really read any of the reactions in the crowd, but seemingly pleased by her win, Jean looks weirdly pissed off back at the hospital. No idea why. I guess it's that wildness her husband mentioned, but often in this film, it seems like actors don't know their motivations. I'm not surprised this director has no previous or further feature film credits. Like, so often I don't know what emotion I'm supposed to be reading from people.
Yeah.
Backstage, Barbara is confused when a stagehand tries to recollect her Emmy, but they explain the statue they gave her is a prop and she'll be mailed a proper statue. The scene is either just meant as a little awards show factoid moment or intended to indicate that Barbara is impaired by her rampant Valium abuse, but it's such a quick and harmless misunderstanding that I don't think it makes the point very well if it was meant to. I don't know why we included this.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is unnecessary, but I think that coupled with her sort of rambling, nonsensical speech.
Was it that rambling? It just sounded like a typical awards show speech to me.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it jumped around a bit. I felt like it didn't seem very cohesive.
It felt like she was self-censoring more than it felt like she was losing track of what she was talking about. It seemed like she came to a point where she was like, I don't want to bring the mood down. I'm going to change what I'm talking about.
I thought it felt more like she didn't really have a plan for what to say, or she forgot the plan for what she was going to say.
It was a very difficult time, and I wish I could come here and tell you that they had been reinstituted into the Society of Long Beach, but unfortunately, I deeply appreciate this award, and I'm very proud, and I'm very proud of the way I make my living. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if you're going to include the moment about the statue, then things need to get more intense.
Yeah, like she needs to like wrestle with the guy over it.
Yeah, like, because, you know, it starts off knowing this is mine, and then he explains himself, and she goes, oh, of course. But
she's like, oh yeah, you guys told me that, I forgot.
Yeah.
End of conversation. It's like, this should have been a bigger deal if this was supposed to be her being a drug addict. Now we cut to Barbara meeting with her psychiatrist, played by Joseph Maher. She admits that the decade she spent as his patient has felt like a waste of time. He asks about her Valium intake and seems surprised by the dosage, but not enough for any major concern.
But he prescribes it, right?
Well, he had already prescribed it to her, yeah.
So he should understand how much she's taking because she's getting refills.
Yeah, he has to sign off on it.
And those, like, that, I mean, I guess I don't know what it was like in 1982, but I assumed it's a controlled substance.
Right, I would think so.
It's not a drug to be afraid of, Barbara. There's a relative lack of side effects.
When she admits a fear that she's abusing the drug, the psychiatrist pitches a new medication, but Barbara doesn't want new meds. She wants off the meds.
Well, we need some kind of drug to control your symptoms, Barbara. Your anxieties are disabling.
You're telling me.
If you're dissatisfied, Barbara, your duty is to yourself.
She agrees to stay on the recommended dosage. We cut to the break room at her office where she's screening a rough cut of the new documentary for Alan. His response is muted, probably because it ends on the beach instead of the gut punch back at the hospital. He asks what project she has lined up next and recommends a story he's working on about corrupt adoption agencies. She agrees to the project immediately. Fran tells Barbara she missed a call from Jean yesterday and she's finally ready to see the movie. Barbara is annoyed it took over 24 hours to deliver this message. We cut right to Jean's room at the hospital where she watches the documentary. Barbara sits on the neighboring hospital bed and watches her face throughout. Jean's husband, Ben, watches emotionless beside her. A nurse enters with medicine for Jean and recognizes her patient on the television. She asks what they're watching, and Barbara shushes her repeatedly.
What kind of show is this?
Documentary.
The cross, the golden.
You on every week? Well, I want to watch it. You're on every week.
Was history.
You gonna watch if she's on every week?
Please.
Jean has an emotional reaction to the beach footage, but her expression turns dark when the film ends there. The nurse leaves the room, and Barbara rises to eject the tape from the VCR.
What gall, what monumental gall.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Couldn't believe how rude she was. Honestly, you should report her.
Not her. She was a breath of fresh air.
Then who?
Who? You. You with your piece of shit movie.
Jean is very blunt in expressing her opinion of the film. She says the beach ending looks like a deodorant commercial, and it's condescending to the audience. Jean tells a story I don't quite follow. She says she was here alone at the hospital and incandescent one night.
I was a goddamn flame here last night, and I know that if anybody had been here, they would have seen that I died. And then I came back. But I was gone for a little while. That happened to me. And nobody was here. So I can't expect to be believed. But I was.
What are you telling me?
Yeah, this is part of my frustration with this character and this storyline. It's just like...
She's trying to be poetic, and she's just using a very typical Phoenix story to be like, oh, I caught fire and I'm back. And it's like, were you resurrected, or are you the exact same person you were the day before? And you're just as sick. And do you think you're getting better? Because for the beginning and rest of the movie, you don't. So for this one moment, did you think you were fixed somehow? I can't tell if it's supposed to be poetic or if she means this literally. If it's poetic, it's over my head. And if it's literal, I guess she's just losing it. And they want us to see that she's losing it.
But what's this film about? What are we trying to tell?
I don't know.
I mean... I mean the film within a film, but it can go for the film itself as well. But this film within a film, I don't know what she's trying to portray about this illness. Is it like the American healthcare system? Because they never talk about that.
The only thing that I get from this is Valium withdrawal sucks. That's the only message I get from the whole film. I don't know what any of the rest of it is about.
Yeah,
and I don't know that they
like
knew.
This whole B story of this film just is not fleshed out, and it's frustrating.
I wonder if in the book this story was more significant. Like it's like a parallel story running along the addiction story.
It has to be, right? I haven't read it, but I have to assume that the film is also oversimplifying the whole documentary subplot, because it can't be as black and white as happy ending equals bad, sad ending equals good, and we harp on that dichotomy for the first half hour of the movie.
Yeah.
Barbara's obviously horrified by Jean's review, and it seems crazy that a single shot at the end of the film could make the entire project worthless when the rest is just one-on-one interviews with this woman who knows what she said in those interviews.
Right.
Does the whole thing suck, or just this one edit? It feels like we're meant to side with Jean against Barbara here, but her review just seems cruel and unconstructive.
What I want is your criticism, too.
Burn it.
Burn it? I can't do that.
Ben tries to break up the argument and reminds Barbara that he recommended she stay away. So maybe the point here is that Jean isn't making sense, and she's not in the right headspace to offer worthwhile notes.
Yeah. Because we don't know how this illness is affecting her, and if it is causing her to have some kind of violent mood swing or lash out, then I can't take this moment with...
This isn't a sincere criticism.
Yeah.
Jean keeps blathering on about how the documentary should end with a global manhunt for the missing central character of the film, and Barbara is driven to digging through her purse for Valium to calm herself down. Jean notices her medicating and takes the opportunity to twist the knife.
Oh, that's right. Take a pill. Goddamn dilettante. Take a Valium, that's perfect. That's what you did. You made a Valium movie. You look at it, you turn into a zombie. You look at it, you stop feeling or seeing anything real. Just get out.
Is that really how she feels about the entire thing? Barbara just won an Emmy like 5 minutes ago for her talent in this field, but Jean treats her like a drug-addled amateur. Jean claims to be annoyed that this documentary about death doesn't have any death in it, but that's kind of her fault for still being alive.
Like, great, I have an idea for a new ending.
Yeah.
Could you die a little?
You're taking your time here. Barbara rushes straight home on the verge of tears, and Derek greets her at the door with his sympathies. He has heard what happened at the hospital and assures her that Jean isn't making any sense. She collapses face first on a bed, and Derek returns to the couch to wait for her to reappear. When she does, he has coffee made. He's just on his way out and reminds her they have plans tonight. The phone rings, and it's Fran. Apparently, she's showing the film to people against Barbara's wishes, and they all loved it. The fact that she ignored such strict instructions, though, seems pretty annoying.
Hello? The people here screened the movie. They really loved it.
You let people see it?
Damn it, Fran! I told you nobody was to see it.
But they really loved it.
I'm really mad at you,
They
Fran.
loved it.
Shut the fuck up. I told you not to show it to people. You're literally fired. That's what she should have said. She doesn't say that. After she hangs up, Barbara pops a couple more Valiums and then spits them up when she realizes what she's doing. She phones her psychiatrist to cancel her next appointment and inform him that she's quitting her medications cold turkey.
I actually really like the phone call. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to make it in today. He's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Do you recall the last time we watched a film about people quitting something cold turkey?
Cold turkey.
Yeah.
Wait, I think there was one more recently than that, though. What's that movie called? Winter of Our Dreams?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. That was a good one.
Her doctor advises her against quitting so abruptly and without a safety net medication, but she hangs up on him.
You know what else, Dr. Kalman? I'm done with you, too.
Barbara, what you're intending is...
You're fired.
This is what you should have said to Fran earlier. She scours her apartment for all the pills she has hidden in bookmark envelopes, clothing items, boxes of tampons, etc.
So she's trying to hide that she takes Valium from Derek?
I guess because he doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he seems excited when she's done with it.
Yeah.
But it's not
But that
like
would imply he knows.
Yeah, he's not complaining about it when she does take them.
I think that's kind of a weird thing. It's like nobody in her life instigated this on her behalf.
Right,
like,
yeah.
She's like, wow, this is weird. I feel like maybe I have a problem. I'm just going to quit.
It's like, but you also showed incredible moderation earlier when you hid 200 pills around your house.
Yeah.
It's like you had to buy those on schedule and not take them for them to all exist in your apartment.
And it's not like you have children or people who are addicts who are going to come looking for these pills. Just keep them in your medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
Why do they have to be
Why
all
are they
over?
everywhere? She seems to have them hidden in every corner of the apartment, which is odd because we haven't seen anyone on her case about taking them until Jean just now. She flushes 200 pills down the toilet. When Derek gets home later...
Which is also not the proper way, because it gets into the water and some of that stuff, when this water gets treated, it's being treated for certain things, not being treated for those types of chemicals.
But if you ever wondered why Michelangelo seems so mellow, it's because of all the Valium that gets flushed down there.
Yeah, so I was just double checking because I was just like, well, maybe in 82 there wasn't like the controlled substance governance that there is, but there was.
Yeah.
It started in the 70s. So, yeah, she couldn't have just gotten these freely without, obviously she got prescribed them, but she'd have to have stockpiled all these,
Or
right?
she has 5 doctors.
Or she's buying them off the street, which they don't make that clear because they seem to be just showing her going to her doctor all the time.
When Derek gets home, hours later, she's doing sit-ups in her room and shares with him that she's quit the Valium. He's ecstatic to hear about it. She seems manic as she dances around the apartment. The phone rings, and apparently she's forgotten a dinner date with her friend Karen and her boyfriend, the editor Sam. She and Derek head straight there together. Sam, the editor, informs Barbara that Jean checked out of the hospital. Barbara phones Jean's husband, Ben, to see how she's doing, but Ben hangs up on her without an update. That night, Derek is kept up by her incessant rolling around in bed. The next morning, she tells Derek she's considering taking the day off, and the second he's out the door for work, her hands start shaking in the kitchen. She tears through the cabinets in search of leftover pills she neglected to flush, and finds another bottle of Valium she missed yesterday. Before she can get them in her mouth, Derek pops back in to kiss her goodbye, and she takes it as a sign to dump these last 10 or so Valium down the drain. We see the two of them headed to a beach picnic the next day, and Barbara's jitters cause her to accidentally drop the wine bottles they brought.
But she's also complaining that it's I feel sick. I can't walk. And he's like, we're almost to the beach, honey.
Yeah.
He's just not listening to a thing that she says. But also what really made me mad was, have they never heard of withdrawal? She's clearly exhibiting symptoms of withdrawal.
Yeah.
And then you should immediately be aware, especially as someone who works in the news and seems to work with humanitarian type stories, that withdrawal is a well-known thing.
Very strange that she doesn't expect this at all. Derek offers to replace the wine and leaves her in the sand to relax, but as soon as he's gone, she suffers a violent seizure on the beach and foams at the mouth. We hard cut to Derek, worried behind the wheel, driving Barbara home. Not to the hospital,
right?
Just straight home.
And I wouldn't even say worried as much as
annoyed.
Annoyed.
You fucked up my picnic, you dumb addict. That night, Barbara is wrapped up on the couch and asks Derek if she let Dr. Kalman treat her that way because of how her father used to treat her. Derek mishears the question and asks if she thinks her father doesn't love her. What follows is a pointless argument between two very strange people who repeatedly misunderstand each other.
I mean, your father, that he doesn't love you anymore.
Of course he does. Why are you trying to hurt my feelings?
I'm not. I thought that's what you said.
He got mad at me, but I think he loved me under it all. At least I think he did.
I don't want to discuss it.
You can't just bring something up like that and then say you don't want to discuss it.
I didn't mean to bring it up. I thought you did, and I don't want to discuss it.
How come you think my father doesn't love me?
Because you're a brat. Sometimes. You're a goddamn selfish brat.
This scene would be much less disorienting if only the character going through withdrawal was talking like a crazy person, but they both seem equally insane to me. Why did he suddenly pick on her for a thing that he didn't even care about and accidentally said?
Well, this isn't the last time he's going to do that, too.
Yeah.
Derek pressures her to drink vodka with him so they can both relax a little, and Barbara reminds him that her doctor advised against it.
Yeah, he's also the one who told you to take Valium, isn't he? So have a drink.
They say a funny cheers to each other, though.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
In the middle of the night, a migraine drives Barbara to collapse on the bathroom floor, gripping her head and freaking out. In the morning, she pulls the blankets off Derek in bed to show him something interesting she discovered. It's a new form of social mathematics made up of triangles. She cut them from magazines to represent the people in her life and how they relate to each other, geometrically.
And suddenly I realized, it was like out of the blue, I realized that the missing ingredient was mathematics, or more correctly, geometry, which is the main factor of all modern scientific exploration. So I started making these triangles. I realized it was like the key to figuring out all human relationships. Do you see the sequence here? Here's mine. Here's Jean's. Here's Gramps.
Because everyone knows geometry is the main factor of all scientific exploration.
Right.
Neglecting to rush her to a hospital again, Derek invites her to elaborate and pretends this isn't a crazy thing to show someone, which unfortunately leaves the film's audience without a sane character to identify with. He asks which triangle represents him, and when she explains that it doesn't really matter, he is somehow offended not to have a clearly defined triangle in her diagram. It's like, shut the fuck up! Why are you arguing with this person?
Which one's mine? I don't have a triangle?
How dare you say that? You wake me up and you drag me out here and I don't even have a triangle on the wall. For some reason, it occurs to her first that she's going crazy, and then he tries to talk her out of that suspicion.
I think this triangle thing is interesting, just so long as you don't mean it completely literally. Or,
Oh, no.
no. How do you mean it?
Well, it's just... it's an explanation aid.
He assures her a crazy person would never recognize their own craziness, so he offers to stay home from work and get sloppy drunk so she can tell him about her ghost triangles. They spend the next few hours sitting on the living room floor, with Derek getting progressively drunker and Barbara having withdrawal freakouts and intermittently demanding more Valium. Derek just shouts at her and begs her to be normal again because he can't put up with her crazed moaning forever. He drinks more and more and takes this inopportune moment to drop a needlessly incendiary detail that he actually lost his job, and whenever he leaves the house lately, he's just going to the movies. Why would you say that right now?
Yeah.
When I'm going fucking crazy?
Well, I guess it's to show that, like, well, because he's very self-centered, so he's trying to say, like, I got problems too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a job. You're dying.
I can't tell when people are going through withdrawal and I should be easy on them.
He says my favorite line, I think somewhere around here, where he says, I've put some of my best energy into trying to help you.
Yeah.
And I was like, some
of it. A lot of it's going toward picking a great movie to watch all day while you sit here and freak out. Barbara breaks down, terrified that they've both tanked their careers and will soon be living on the street. The phone rings, and he tells Barbara to cry into a pillow so he doesn't have to explain things to anyone. He tells Karen on the phone that Barbara is resting. Derek suggests they head out for a movie, and Barbara starts shrieking that she'll never leave home again.
Please promise me you'll stay here. Just you and me forever. Promise me. Please. 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 I won't go, and you can't make me. You can't make me.
She has a moment of clarity and acknowledges that she needs to see a doctor, probably because she wants more medicine as soon as possible. Derek stops her from leaving and insists that if she saw a doctor in her current condition, she would be committed to an asylum. She collapses to the couch, and Derek promises to get her well enough to see a doctor soon. After a brief pause, she's done making sense for the day.
I feel like a bar of soap.
What do you mean?
Bar of soap. Don't you know what a bar of soap is?
Yes, I know what a bar of soap
Oh,
is.
stop screaming at me.
But I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Let me alone.
like, tell me what it's like to be a bar of soap. He starts hitting her with a pillow.
What is the usefulness of arguing with a person in her condition unless they're meant to be equally insane for all of these withdrawal scenes? Has he been taking a bunch of Valium too while we weren't looking? She tries to stand and walk past him, but he won't let her leave without explaining the soap comment. In his situation, I'd have just been like, yep, bar of soap, got it. Because who fucking cares what she meant? She's crazy right now. But instead, Derek beats her to the floor for not explaining herself.
Do you remember the last time somebody associated themselves with a bar of soap?
Instead of saying they felt like one, they wished they were one.
They wished they were one. Yeah, that's a good hint. So you got it, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, what is it?
The Incredible Shrinking Woman.
Oh, I wish I was a little bar of soap.
Bar of soap.
Oh, I wish I was a little bar of soap. Don't throw.
That night, Barbara calls someone on the phone, probably Jean's husband Ben, but we never hear the other side of the conversation, and she confesses relatively crazily that everyone is rubbing on her and she's disappearing. When he doesn't react as she'd hoped, she tries to tell him to please relay to Jean that Barbara has read a lot of her poetry and some of it is shit. Derek is woken by her shouting into the phone and urges her back to bed. She shares with Derek Ben's claim that Jean ran away from the hospital after their argument, but I'm not clear if we're supposed to think she's missing or what exactly is going on, or if she just asked to be sent home.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask to be discharged.
Yeah. We jump forward in time to Derek waking on the couch and worrying that Barbara has disappeared on him, but eventually she appears. Someone knocks at the door, and Derek insists on answering to find a delivery from the local pharmacy. It seems Barbara is trying to get back on the pills, and he's devastated to learn he can't trust her.
Can I have some? I think I need some.
You dirty little sneak.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can I have some?
He intercepts a phone call from Dr. Kalman and claims he and Barbara are headed on a trip to Europe, but they'll touch base when they return. He goes around the apartment disconnecting all the phones to avoid future schemes. That night, we see her sneaking around the apartment while Derek is channel surfing on the living room TV, and just when she thinks she's home free, Derek grabs her shoulder from behind and drags her back into his plan. She makes a run for the door, and he literally tackles her to the ground. She locks herself in the bedroom, and he bashes open the door and corners her before throwing her on the bed and slapping her hard in the face to combat her simian shrieking. The fight evolves into straight-up face punching, and eventually we cut to Derek preparing a bowl of soup in the kitchen with deep fingernail scratches in his face. We follow him back to her room where we see Barbara literally bound to a chair. He tries to spoon-feed the soup to her.
This just I was like, oh God, this is getting into a very, very bad situation.
This escalated quickly.
Yeah.
He never recovers from this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he's going to start tattooing her in some moment.
Oh my God. I haven't finished the mark yet. You can't go anywhere. She tries again to convince him that a doctor's intervention is necessary. When he shuts the idea down again, she suddenly remembers that she invited friends to the apartment today, and they should probably call to cancel so nobody sees the shape they're in. As soon as Derek gets their friends on the line, Barbara begins shrieking that she was trapped here and to please come save her. Weirdly, he tries to play it off as a joke for like 15 seconds before giving up and disconnecting the call. He should have immediately hung up.
Yeah.
And then called back from outside.
For a new film. Yeah. Come on, sweetheart. I can't hear Karen. Oh, Sam. Sam, no. Sam, don't. No, Sam. You tricked me. You crazy bitch. Now what am I gonna do?
We cut right to Sam and Karen at the door, and Derek comes fully clean.
She's hopelessly insane.
I'm fine.
I'm totally great, guys. You gotta get you anything? Soup?
Yeah, soup.
Just try to push it into their mouths.
Here comes the airplane.
I really wanted the scene just to cut, and then he's got all three of them tied to chairs.
That'd be awesome.
He's like, okay, this is becoming a problem. I don't have enough chairs.
They're shocked when they see Barbara's face, but insanely, he still has her tied to the chair when he leads them in. I feel like I would have at least undone those straps so it didn't look like I was completely insane and this was all my doing. We cut to Barbara meeting with Dr. Roberts, played by Jeffrey DeMunn. He prescribes an antidepressant in place of her Valium. He tries to communicate exactly how difficult Valium withdrawal can be, as if she didn't know, but admits that she's already survived the worst of it. She's eager to get back to work, but her doctor recommends she take her time. Suddenly, she's planning a trip to Italy, and she seems to think that that's far enough away that Derek won't bother flying there to try and kill her. She's convinced that he has plans of poisoning her. I guess this is a hint for her doctor that she's out of touch with reality, but he just smiles as if accusing your boyfriend of trying to poison you is a reasonable guess at what's happening. We cut right to Barbara being processed at an asylum, and the staff are emptying her purse of anything dangerous.
That's my Bloomingdale's charge card. Oh, it has sharp edges.
You should see the interest rate.
Oh my God.
I don't know if that's funny.
Who knows?
I also think that we don't really address the fact that the man tied her up in her apartment. I think that...
Why isn't he in an asylum?
Or at least investigated. When she says he's poisoning him, it's not like, oh, she's crazy, let's lock her up. It's like, he tied her up.
Yeah.
It was like spoon feeding her.
But he also is a man, so he's probably fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get any...
This is 1982. This is before men had done anything wrong.
we don't get any clue that he's like been... that she's gone to trial and testified against him or anything like that.
Later, Barbara takes a seat in the cafeteria, and a young Joe Pesci, as Roger, pulls up a chair beside her. He extends an exotic invitation to his new friend.
Would you like to come with me tonight to the planet Uranus?
She doesn't think she's up to it, but he assures her that the Uranians are fans of hers, and they will break the trip into manageable legs, stopping first at the moon for a bit.
For a burger.
For a burger, yeah.
It was like, a moon is like 1/1000% of the way to
And we're going to have 999 more burgers on the way. They notice a nearby patient played by Pesci's future partner in crime, Daniel Stern, playing Jim, and Roger shares that Jim got stuck with the worst doctor here, who he refers to as the Swamp Lady. He admits to trying to kill the Swamp Lady several times, and that's the last time we'll mention the Swamp Lady. Barbara reveals that she's been assigned to Dr. Addison, and Roger shares that he's brought Dr. Addison to Uranus many times.
Is Dr. Addison the Swamp Lady?
No, it was the woman that was sitting with him at the table. Oh, it was the one that was talking.
Okay.
We cut to Barbara's first meeting with Addison, played by Dianne Wiest, who we saw last playing Clayburgh's cousin in It's My Turn. Barbara tries to light a cigarette, but Addison makes her put it out. Barbara is quickly aggravated and claims that she will fake being better and get out of here in no time. Dr. Addison tells her it won't work on her. Barbara explains that her 10 years of therapy have been worthless and turned her against believing in the process. Addison talks through Barbara's faulty logic that Derek tried to poison her water and all the insane steps it would take for Barbara's suspicions to be true.
Listen to me. When you told Dr. Roberts about the water, the poison in the water, you actually believed it was there.
Yes, I did.
You thought Derek brought it. He probably carried it with him everywhere. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. He probably carried it with him just in case you made a friend.
Right.
Yes, he probably snuck into the office when no one was there and put poison in all the water.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Well, I think something good in you, something healthy in you, knew that you needed help. And it made sure you got it. You knew that Dr. Roberts would send you here.
No.
Over the course of their next few interactions, Addison seems to intentionally antagonize Barbara, and Barbara just gets louder and angrier. It's clear Addison's goal is to force Barbara into one of those movie breakthrough moments. Addison leaves Barbara's mail in her room, and Barbara follows her out into the yard and asks her to take the mail away with her. Addison invites her to trash the mail on her own. Barbara is outside for the first time in months and practically disoriented by it. After Addison leaves, Barbara reads some of her mail and follows through on some of Addison's recommendations, painting a picture and interacting peacefully with the wet bandits. Her next session with Addison is more fruitful, and we get a long muted montage of things going well in the program. At the end of a group therapy session, Barbara is told that she has a female visitor and assumes it's Karen, but in the rec room she finds Jean.
Is she dying or not?
It's fine.
Would you just die already?
I was incandescent again yesterday, so I'm good for a little bit.
It seems like she was bedridden practically.
Yeah.
And now she's just like, nah.
And then she ran away from a hospital, full speed.
Look up bet.
Yeah, so now she's just paying visits to asylums alone.
Yeah.
I've decided to write a poem about mental institutions, and I heard you were in one, so I thought I'd come by and ask if I could write it about you.
The perfect vengeance on another artist who seems to have preyed on your illness. Jean asks what poems Barbara hated and Barbara admits she was just trying to hurt Jean's feelings. Jean admits to Barbara that the film wasn't as bad as she said, though she still hates the ending. She was mostly mad that more people will see the documentary than will ever read her poems, and that she didn't feel it presented her how she wanted to be seen. When they walk around the grounds together, Jean takes note of other patients here, including Roger. She agrees to help Barbara fix the ending of the documentary when she's released from this institution. We get another muted montage of time passing at the hospital, and it ends with Barbara sharing how she'd hoped Jean would react to the documentary and how silly she feels about it now. Addison thinks Barbara may be ready for release. We cut right to Barbara arriving home, and things look mostly tidied up in her apartment, but the living room is still wallpapered in her cryptic social triangle schematics. She takes them down and replaces them with her paintings from the institution. Barbara returns to the office and finds people editing her documentary without her. She storms into the office of network executive Mr. Brunner, played by John Lithgow.
By the look of things, maybe you left your institution a little early. Sit down, just kidding.
This is a bluff. You know it. Because contractually, I have the right to finish my film. And nobody can touch it unless I don't finish it in the next 62 days.
Brunner threatens the future of her career if she doesn't let the new editor finish the film, but she doesn't take his bait. On her way out, he tells her that her Emmys mean nothing to him, and the documentary sucks the way she left it, but she doesn't care. We cut back to Jean's hospital room, and she looks sicker than ever. Barbara tells her about her fellow patient Roger and his trips to Uranus.
And you turned him down.
I was crazy.
And he had a map. I could use a map.
He had it all worked out.
Jean talks about how to know when it's time to let go of life, and Barbara is on the edge of tears and tries to convince Jean to hang on to her life because she needs help with the ending. But unfortunately, this could also conceivably be read as Barbara imploring Jean to let go, because that would obviously be an ending too. Jean offers a suggestion.
End it with you running on the beach, because you'll still be here. See, it won't be bullshit if it's you, because you will still be here.
We cut to some time later in the editing bay, and a call comes in. Barbara is deep in the creative process and asks Kieran to take a message.
It's Ben.
Barbara understands the implication of Ben calling in Jean's place and cries before even taking the call. We cut right to the tail end of the broadcast of the documentary, complete with Jean's preferred ending. In keeping with the agreement we mentioned earlier, the documentary should be airing commercial-free, and Barbara's narration explains why the film is ending like this.
Jean Scott Martin died on August 12, 1981. This documentary on the last year of her life is dedicated to her memory. And it is ending as she asked me to end it.
We see Barbara walking through the surf on the beach at night, shoes in hand. We freeze frame at the end of the documentary and then cut to black for credits to roll. The end.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about this one. On the one hand, I feel like the withdrawal scenes are pretty good. Like her having her freakouts and her crazy behavior. It didn't help that Derek was also crazy.
Yeah, I really don't understand that choice. I mean, maybe that's the way it was, and he was actually a maniac while she was going through this.
It's also based on her recollection of what happened, you know, based on the book. So
I just feel like it makes more filmic sense for him to be logical.
Yeah.
Or at least to have a logical approach, even if it's not going to work. If he thinks we're going to do cold turkey and we're just going to stick it out and that's going to be fine, which is crazy on its own. It makes more sense to do this with a tempered approach. But instead, he's just exactly as crazy as she is. And every time she says something crazy, he's like, interesting, tell me more. Instead of, that doesn't make sense what you just said. The only time he really calls her out on it is when she says the thing about the soap. And instead of just being like, what you just said doesn't make any sense. Are you hearing yourself? He's like, explain to me about the soap. And he just beats her unconscious. So it's like, why is he doing that? Like, none of his actions make any sense. And I guess we can just say he's drunk.
Well, yeah, he does seem to be rather drunk, the majority of his character. Not Nicol Williamson. But, and, you know, maybe that's how he's coping with his problems. But we never get enough about what is troubling him.
And there's no closure at all because he's just not there when
he's
she
just
comes
gone,
back.
Presumably in jail.
One would hope, yeah. But I think it suffers the most in the direction because so often I don't know what a character's reaction is to something because I can't read them. And if the performance isn't giving me an emotion, then I have no idea what these people are thinking. I don't know if Jill Clayburgh is supposed to be a sloppy Valium addict from the beginning of the movie, or if she's just Jill Clayburgh and she got called out one time and took it very personally and then went into this withdrawal spiral.
Well, and are we to assume that she had been taking Valium for 10 years?
Either way,
the 10 years that she was with her doctor?
If she's been on this medication for 10 years and she just won an Emmy.
Yeah, exactly.
Then she's a very functional Valium abuser.
Yeah, exactly.
She should be more dysfunctional. We should see it causing more problems in her life than one lady who, at the same time as she was saying a lot of nonsense, crazy things, said, I should stop taking these pills because they made my documentary suck. Yeah. When even that lady comes back later and says, just kidding, the doc didn't suck. I'm just crazy. I was crazy and I'm dying.
I don't even fully understand why she puts that much stock into what this lady thinks.
I don't really know either, other than she doesn't have many people in her life. Or the people that she does have in her life she thinks of as subordinates. And this one person is the person who's an equal or is on equal footing in terms of importance to the documentary.
I guess. I maybe she just became close during the filming of it.
Maybe.
And that's a problem too, because we're coming into this at the end of the filming, and we're supposed to understand that they've had a close friendship or that's been and that's why maybe when she says how much your film sucks, she takes it as like a betrayal of their friendship.
But for us, it's not that big a betrayal because we've only seen them have 2 conversations.
Exactly.
And the second conversation was, your movie fucking sucks. Get the fuck out of my hospital.
Which was too intense.
Yeah.
For the previous conversation.
It's just like, and then the next few conversations they have, she's also pretty mean at the start of. I was like, maybe she's like this the whole time. Maybe you guys aren't friends. I don't know. I barely know you people. I didn't read this book yet. Anyway, thumbs down for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's a thumbs down.
It's a thumbs down, yeah.
What are we thinking Letterboxd on this one?
It's not like badly shot. The acting is fine.
I don't know if the acting is fine, but I don't blame the actors. I think the acting is bad because the director and the editor didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. Well, so that being said, I don't have it. I don't know. I have it in the bottom third, I think. I have it in 23 out of 35. It is below Quest for Fire and above The Amateur.
I have it at 19, which puts it below Butterfly, but above McVicker.
I have it in 30th, which is below McVicker and above Night Crossing. Our director here was Jack Hofsiss. He also directed 212 episodes of For Richer or Poorer. The rest of his credits are all TV movies or one-off series director credits. The writer of the book here was Barbara Gordon. She had worked previously for a long time on NBC's Today Show and co-produced documentaries. Screenwriter David Rabe was the husband at the time of actress Jill Clayburgh. This was his first feature screenwriting credit, and later he writes The Firm, Hurly Burly, and Those the River Keeps. The music here came from Stanley Silverman. He composed Nanook of the North and, so far on the show, Simon and Eyewitness. The cinematographer here was Jan de Bont. We saw his work lighting Private Lessons, Roar, and Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker last season. Later he lights Cujo, All the Right Moves, Clan of the Cave Bear, Die Hard, Black Rain, Hunt for Red October, and Basic Instinct. When someone pitched Die Hard on a Bus to 20th Century Fox, they went right to Die Hard director John McTiernan with a contract, who turned it down but suggested his Die Hard collaborator cinematographer Jan de Bont. Speed became de Bont's blockbuster debut, and he followed it directing Twister, Speed 2, The Haunting, and Tomb Raider 2. The editor here was Michael Bradsell. He previously cut The Devils, Stardust, Jabberwocky, and so far on the show, Breaking Glass and Venom. Later he cuts Max Headroom, Aria, High Spirits, Neverending Story 3, and The Very Thought of You. Jill Clayburgh played Barbara Gordon. Before this, she'd been in The Terminal Man, Silver Streak, and so far on the show, An Unmarried Woman, It's My Turn, and First Monday in October. Later, she appears in Fools Rush In as Matthew Perry's mother. She's Ally McBeal's mother on that show, and her last film appearance was as Kristen Wiig's mother in Bridesmaids. Nicol Williamson played Derek Bauer. We've seen him so far as Merlin in John Boorman's Excalibur and Commander Bullock in Venom. He's Hamlet in the 1969 Hamlet. He's Dr. Worley in Return to Oz. He's Father Morning in Exorcist 3 and Cagliostro in Spawn. Dianne Wiest played Julie Addison. Her only previous feature was also alongside Clayburgh in It's My Turn. She's in Footloose, The Purple Rose of Cairo, Hannah and Her Sisters, Radio Days, The Lost Boys, Parenthood, Edward Scissorhands, Bullets Over Broadway, The Birdcage, Practical Magic, and Synecdoche, New York. More recently, she's appeared in 79 episodes of Life in Pieces and 20 episodes of Mayor of Kingstown. Joe Pesci played Roger. We saw him last in Raging Bull. After this, he's in Once Upon a Time in America, Moonwalker, Lethal Weapon 2, Goodfellas, and he reunites with Daniel Stern for Home Alone and Home Alone 2. He's My Cousin Vinny. He's in With Honors, 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, and more recently he came back for The Irishman. I think he was retired for a long time and then came back for that.
I like that you included Moonwalker, though.
Yeah, it's great. Him and his tarantula collection.
Yeah.
Geraldine Page played Jean Scott Martin. Before this, she was in Hondo, The Beguiled, The Day of the Locust, and she voices Madame Medusa in The Rescuers. We've seen her now as Aunt Beverly in Harry's War and Sister Mary Clarice in Honky Tonk Freeway. Albert Salmi played Ben Martin. Lots of TV before this. We've seen him so far in Escape from the Planet of the Apes, and in the 80s with Cloud Dancer, Brubaker. He's Danny Noonan's father in Caddyshack. He's Grail in Dragon Slayer, and he's also in a 1981 title we'll have to catch with a minisode called St. Helens. Somehow, in his previous appearances on the show, I have neglected to mention that in 1990, his last wife, Roberta Salmi, filed for divorce and took out a restraining order against him after years of drunken abuse, but sadly, the order did not protect her, and he confronted and fatally shot her 2 months later before killing himself. James Sutorius played Sam Mulligan. We've heard his voice previously as ADR of the killer's voice in Cruising. If you'll recall, they switched the character playing the killer a bunch of times in that movie, just to confuse us.
Yeah.
Ellen Greene played Karen Mulligan. Before this, she was in Next Stop Greenwich Village. After this, she's Audrey 1 in Little Shop of Horrors. She's in Pump Up the Volume, Rockadoodle, Naked Gun 33 1/3, Wagons East. She's Matilda's mother in Leon the Professional, and she was Abilene Jones, the projectionist at the drive-in theater on Pete and Pete. She's also numerologist Vicky Burdick in X-Files episode Improbably with guest star Burt Reynolds. She's Vivian Charles in 22 episodes of Pushing Daisies.
Mm-hmm.
Cordis Hurd played Fran. Before this, she was an uncredited student in Marathon Man, and we've seen her so far as Wally in Caddyshack. Later, she's in Chud, Hero with Dustin Hoffman, Fearless, which I used to confuse with Hero because they both start with dudes rescuing people from crashed planes.
Right.
And more recently, she was Iola Crumb on the Fargo TV series. She's also the sister of Mr. McAllister John Hurd. So brother and sister have both worked with Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Masur played Alan Newman. He was Rutherford in Risky Business, Mr. Anderson in License to Drive, Phil Sultanfuss in My Girl, but I always think of Clark from The Thing later this season, or as Sean Astin's dad in Encino Man. He was also Sheriff Ed Smalley in William Goldman's Tom Horn TV movie Mr. Horn starring David Carradine, and we've seen him so far as Cully in Heaven's Gate. Charlie Stavola played a bartender. He's also an assistant director in The Rocketeer, not the assistant director of The Rocketeer. He plays an assistant director within the film. Roger Etienne played a waiter. We've seen him so far as a French translator in First Family and a French waiter in Paternity. Eleanor Z played Emmy presenter. She was Adam Sandler's mom opposite George Coe as his dad in Funny People. We've seen her now in Blood Beach, Seed of Innocence, and First Family. John Shearin played Emmy official. He was Sheriff Dowd in 18 episodes of Brett Maverick in the early 80s and Lieutenant Finn in 26 episodes of Hunter. Joseph Maher played Dr. Kalman. We've seen him now in Just Tell Me What You Want, Those Lips, Those Eyes, Going Ape, and Under the Rainbow. Later he's in My Stepmother's an Alien, IQ, Mars Attacks, Sister Act, and the Out of Towners remake. Ann Weldon played Nurse. We saw her last as Rachel in Serial. Jeffrey DeMunn played Dr. Roberts. He was Burston's husband Joe in Resurrection, Sergeant Corelli in First Deadly Sin, Santa's brother in Christmas Evil, and Harry Houdini in Ragtime. He became a regular collaborator of Frank Darabont's with appearances in The Blob, Shawshank, The Green Mile, The Majestic, The Mist, and The Walking Dead. Toni Kalem played Debbie. She was Private Gianelli in Private Benjamin and Diane Casabello in Paternity so far for us. She's also the mom in MacGyver episode Birthday, which frankly we've made fun of enough. More recently, she was Angie Ponciero in 11 episodes of The Sopranos. Robert Doquy is Teddy. He's barely in the film, but he's a recognizable moment when he grabs her when she's trying to escape as she's getting processed into the institution. Before this, he was in The Devil's Eight, Coffee, and we've seen him now in Guyana Cult of the Damned and Carney. Later, he's in Cloak and Dagger, My Science Project, and RoboCops 1, 2, and 3. Daniel Stern played Jim. Before this, he was in Breaking Away and Starting Over, also starring Jill Clayburgh. We've seen him so far in A Small Circle of Friends, Stardust Memories, One Trick Pony, and Honky Tonk Freeway. He was also a student rival of Jill Clayburgh's in It's My Turn. He's back this season in Diner, and later in Blue Thunder, Chud, Frankenweenie, Hannah and Her Sisters, The Milagro Beanfield War, Leviathan, and Little Monsters. He is the adult voice of the narrator Kevin Arnold on The Wonder Years. And of course, he reteams with Joe Pesci from this film as Marv of the Wet Bandits in Home Alones 1 and 2. He's also in City Slickers 1 and 2, and Rookie of the Year, Celtic Pride, Very Bad Things. He voiced Dilbert on The Dilbert Show, and from what I can remember, his only standalone lead role was in the camper comedy Bushwhacked, which bombed in theaters despite my best efforts to prop up its box office by seeing it twice opening weekend. CCH Pounder played Anne. Before this, she was in All That Jazz, and later she's in Psycho 4, 4 LA Law episodes, RoboCop 3, Life Pod. She's in 3 Gargoyles episodes, Face Off, the Millennium TV series. She was Amanda Waller's voice on Justice League Unlimited. She's in Avatar, Law and Order SVU, The X-Files, The West Wing, but she's definitely best known from an 88 episode run as Captain Wims on The Shield, which always reminds me of that Always Sunny bit where the gang are picking on Dee for her Obama impression because it's racist, so she challenges Dennis to do an impression of CCH Pounder, and he nails it.
What other errands do you have us running for the DA? What other errands do you have us running for the DA?
I really like her from the Baghdad Cafe.
Oh, okay, that's a good one too, yeah. Ann DeSalvo played Iris. We've seen her now in Stardust Memories and Arthur, and she's back this season for My Favorite Year. Later, she's in DC Cab, and she's Gloria LeBeck, the second wife of Eddie LeBeck, the second husband of Carla Tortelli on Cheers. Richard Hamilton played Joe. We've seen him in Resurrection and Arthur. Later, he's back in Pale Rider, and he's retiring Man in Black D from the start of the first Men in Black movie, who Kay then replaces by recruiting Jay. Dan Hedaya played Dr. Klein. He doesn't really have a lot to do. He was hosting the group therapy session, but I didn't even mention him because it's such a nothing scene.
Yeah.
We've seen him now in Night of the Juggler and True Confessions. Later, he's in Blood Simple, Joe versus the Volcano, The Addams Family. He was Nick Tortelli, the first husband of Carla Tortelli on Cheers, and he even led a Cheers spinoff called The Tortellis about him, his second wife Jean Kasem, and their many children. He's in Benny and June, Commando, Clueless, and my personal favorite, Night at the Roxbury. Margaret Ladd played Lara. She's Emma Channing in 194 episodes of Falcon Crest. Eb Rose Smith played Chet. We've seen him now in Brubaker and Resurrection. Later, he's back for Pandemonium, and later Tapeheads, Fletch Lives, and 6 appearances on Portlandia. Deborah Foreman played Cindy. Later, she shows up in Valley Girl, Real Genius, and April Fool's Day. Erin Halligan played Denise. She's back this season for Wacko and later Joysticks. Glenn R. Wilder played Orderly Number 2. We've seen him now in White Lightning and Logan's Run, mostly stunt work beyond that. Andrew Winter played Greg Larson. He's back this season for Hammett and Francis. John Lithgow played Mr. Brunner. Lithgow was previously Lucas Sargent in All That Jazz. We saw him last in Blowout, and he's back this season for The World According to Garp. Does he play Robert Muldoon in that? The World According to Garp? It's like a trans football player.
Yeah, that is his character. I don't remember the name.
I think the character's name is Robert Muldoon, which confused me because that's the name of the raptor specialist.
Yeah.
from Jurassic Park.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
Yeah,
Like,
he's like
Jurassic
a retired
Park?
NFL player who became a woman.
Right.
Yeah. He's in the Twilight Zone movie, Terms of Endearment, Footloose, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, 2010, The Year We Make Contact, and Raising Cain. My generation probably know him best as either Lord Farquaad from Shrek or Dr. Dick Solomon from Third Rock from the Sun. He also basically reprised the villain role from Blowout to play Showtime series Dexter's Trinity Killer. David Margulies played Walter Kress. We've seen him now in Hide in Plain Sight, Dress to Kill, and Times Square. I know him best as Mayor Lenny Klotch from Ghostbusters 1 and 2. He's also in Ishtar, Ace Ventura. He's Carl Laemmle in The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. Laemmle, of course, the founder of Universal Pictures, which is why the building I work in is called the Laemmle Building.
I'd just like to say that almost 50% of us voted for you in the last election.
Laura Cody played newscaster. We've seen her now as Kelvin in Battle Beyond the Stars, and later in This Is Spinal Tap. After that, it's a lot of voice work, including Kay in Dirty Pair, narrator of Hell Comes to Frogtown, a different Kay in Akira, and voices in Rover Dangerfield, Metal Gear Solid, and Paranorman. Paul Wilson played Patient. We've seen him in Where the Buffalo Roam. He was Leonard Smith in 47 episodes of It's Gary Shandling's Show, and he's possibly most recognizable as one of the Bobs from Office Space. Dennis Lee played Dr. Number 1. He was a composer of 96 episodes of Fraggle Rock. Lawrence Sellers was Dr. Number 2. This is his third and final credit after Endless Love and Rollover. We've covered them all. Jordan Derwin played Dr. Number 3. He was previously in Stardust Memories and Splits. I think that's everything for I'm Dancing as Fast as I Can. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you enjoy what we're doing, consider giving us a review on iTunes. I don't think it helps visibility, but it's good for morale. And if you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast for access to all our monthly 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between 11 Harrow House, Big Bad Mama, Blood Spattered Bride, Coonskin, Homebodies, Juggernaut, Julia, Lady Snowblood 2, Phase 4, Scenes from a Marriage, The Swinging Cheerleaders, and The Thirsty Dead for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing The Last Shark, which IMDb describes like so. James Franciscus tries to save hundreds of swimmers in a coastal resort after a great white shark starts terrorizing the area. That's right, James Franciscus the actor, not the character he plays in the film. We leave you now with a trailer for The Last Shark.
Daddy, we need your help.
What was that?
Mikey disappeared. He was surfing, and all of a sudden we didn't see him anymore.
Done a great job, Matt. I won't forget it.
Oh, we have to prove the troublemaker's right.
You mean Benton? I wouldn't worry about him. One of the first things a politician learns is how to handle meddlers like him.
I'd have killed shot most of my life. Well, you would have been right mostly about them. So I'm the expert here. And that's what it's going to take to kill a bastard.
No, damn it. That's my shark, Ron. It has to be.
The hell it is! What's the sense in risking both our necks?
Shots of that shark and I'll buy you a lobster dinner.
You're passing the buck. You're the one who wants to back out of it.
Bottom line is that you've got to be responsible for the destruction of that shark, and not by next week. Now,
Local kids avenge friend's death. Killer shark. I can see it on the network news already.
What if your old man comes looking for his boat?
No way. He's too busy to go cruising. Okay, take us down lower.